relationships is what brings us together today.
Oh, you're taking more notes? That's funny.
She made me take a test before this, and you didn't even tell me this.
Wait, there's a test?
You didn't. Wait, he didn't send the test?
No. That was for my personal notes.
Oh, so you gave him a test?
Yes.
You should be in charge of the podcast, not me.
Baby, don't hurt.
So what's love?
In my opinion, the answer to this is actually a two-part answer. And the first part of the answer is recognizing that the person who you love is failed and has limitations, and still choosing or still deciding that their life has potential. And the second part to this is, after realizing this, the decision to both be completely honest with them and also completely trust them. And when I was thinking about this, I thought about the verse in John 3:16 where it says, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believed in him should not perish but have everlasting life. And I think that plays into God fully understood the fallen state of the world, yet he still chose to sacrifice his Son, and also trusted that human beings would rise up to the challenge and follow his Son. And I guess be able to make it to salvation, the ability and the courage to transcend our weaknesses and our failures and still receive salvation at the end.
So it's not what the modern world would say it would be like a chemistry. It's a chemical reaction. I see you at first sight. I get this warm, fuzzy feeling.
You guys
That's
see him
more
twice.
attraction. Right.
Personally, I don't think it is about the emotion or feeling that we normally think about as love. I think it's more of a conscious decision and a conscious realization.
Right, it's a sacrificing. You gotta wait, it's not sacrificing, but it's also you sacrificing for other people's potential.
I read something that I think kind of fits with this, and it was a quote that said, you prosper someone without any selfish intent. So you
Right.
are doing good to someone without having any thought of them doing good back to you.
Right, so that's kind of more like love. It's kind of just
It should be
giving,
reciprocal.
It's giving and not taking.
Yes. Like Christ died for us before he knew if we were going to choose to follow him or not. With the
Right.
hope that we would choose to follow him and choose to have a relationship and love him.
So you're
But not
saying
without the knowledge, though.
that it's an action. It's not this emotional feeling that you get that, I love you. No, I don't. I just don't feel that way. It's something that I actually show and do.
Yes, but I think before the action comes the realization that this person is not perfect. This person failed. This person has limitations. There's probably going to be times I do not like this person.
Well,
You
hey,
realize
hey.
all of this
We're getting
and
crazy
then
here.
decide you're going to love them, just like God knew that we live in a fallen world and we are sinners.
Well, now I know how you feel about me.
She sees potential in you, though. You're all right.
I'm a weak, fallen state. My name should be Adam.
There you go.
There you are. No offense, cousin.
So it's kind of, I don't know how to put this in simpler form because you just put it in the simplest form out there. It's what Christ did pretty much. He sacrificed himself and everything he had for us.
And I think in marriage we kind of have to do the same thing. This should probably, in my opinion, happen before marriage. And that is that realization, and then your love grows. I don't think, there's no such thing in my opinion as falling in love. I think you continually fall in love with this person as you continually learn to respect them and to trust them and to honor them. It's something that happens throughout your life, not something that just happens once and stays, or you decide falling out of love. That's the other part of this. I don't think there's such a thing as falling out of love. What it is you no longer making the decision to or I guess making the decision that this person continues to have potential, or that you will continue to sacrifice for them. I don't know, something along that line.
Okay, this brings us actually to the next question, which, what is a relationship? I actually have an analogy about that, but I want to hear you guys' opinions on it, about what is a relationship first. I'm meaning more of a romantic relationship and not friendship relationship, because there's a difference.
Well, I'm going to start with relationship in general, and then I have another thought about marriages in specific. Though probably all applies to relationships, marriages are just a much closer relationship.
Right.
But the first part is it's a commitment between two people. A commitment that you will always be there for each other, that you are going to guide this other person, that you are going to trust this other person, listen to them, dream with them, strive with them. And I think that applies to a lot of relationships with your children, relationships, especially as your children mature. I think this probably applies more and more and more. Not that I had this experience with my own child, but with my parents. As I grew and as I matured, they were more willing to not only give me advice, but also maybe listen to what I had to say. And I think that's what helped develop that relationship. And in marriage specifically, I think vulnerability plays a really large part in this, because you have to decide that you are going to be completely open and vulnerable with this other person, knowing that they can completely destroy you, but you still put your full trust in them, and then they, on the other hand, decide never to destroy you. So you are being open and vulnerable, and then on top of that, I think it's always pushing each other a little bit to become better and to grow. I think all of that plays into what a relationship, or at least what a successful marriage should be.
Even in a friendship, that shows in a friendship, like a guy and guy relationship. They keep each other accountable for what they said they were going to do, and they just try to keep each other and keep putting them up. It's more of a faraway thing and not of a vulnerable state thing, even though it's good to be vulnerable in friendships, because
well, to some extent, you have to be vulnerable with them. Maybe not completely open about everything. In a marriage, you do need to be, though.
Yes.
In a marriage, you need to have complete trust in everything. The other person should know your deepest thoughts and desires, and maybe they should know all of the ways in which you can be hurt. And this isn't something that you just openly tell them from the start. It's something that as they learn who you are, and as you learn who they are, you learn this stuff about each other.
Right.
I think the other important part that this plays in how she's forming this relationship is that it entices an environment that you do not feel the necessary or need to lie to your partner. That there's truth that can be flown back and forth. Even if it's a harsh truth, you have created an environment that is open. And so that means even in hard times, I can be candid with my wife, and she's not going to be I'm not going to be concerned that maybe I should hide the truth somewhat from her. That doesn't really come to my thoughts. It's being able to be open and honest, and that's what you're really striving for. What does that environment entail? And I feel like how she explained it, that kind of fully incorporates what you want in that relationship to try to open up to each other. Because life sucks, guys. There's days when you're going to wake up in a marriage that you're just like, man, this is hard for me today for whatever reason. Whether it's my wife's going through hormonal problems, we have a new child that kept us up all night, we're in a new country, whatever, new job, all that stuff. You have to have a relationship that you can honestly tell each other how you're feeling today and what maybe the other person can do to either help you with that or just have a candid discussion. And it's really hard to figure that out if you're not going to be vulnerable with each other.
Well, that kind of really plays into growth. You have to trust that the other person can grow and can better themselves and can handle anything. I think putting that trust in them, if you think that your partner is too weak to be able to handle something, what kind of a relationship is that? That's not an equal relationship. You need to realize that your partner, and understand that your partner can handle whatever you can handle and whatever life throws at them. But the other thing is, when you are brutally honest, or when you are sharing exactly what you think, you have to understand that your partner has feelings, and maybe you have to be a little bit more careful how you share what you think.
Wait, feelings? What are these feelings that you're talking about?
Where did these come up?
Yeah,
I didn't know people felt things.
So maybe think through how your partner responds and reacts to the way you speak and the way you think, and make sure that you phrase things in a way that you aren't immediately offending them or immediately starting a fight. It isn't about starting a fight. It's about learning to really understand each other and build a relationship together.
Right, instead of coming straight at them with, well, you were acting in a very wrong way today. You can bring up the situation like, well, this is what you did. I don't know if you realize what you did, and the circumstances, and maybe there's gonna be problems afterwards because you did this kind of thing.
And this is how it made me feel.
Yeah.
Right.
Instead of, why did you make me feel like this?
Right. It's not an aggressive attack. It's more of a, and this brings in the analogy that I was going to bring up. It's actually a very interesting analogy. It's, so what a relationship starts. A relationship has potential. So, in the beginning, there's this nice piece of land. It's overlooking a lake or something. And two people come together and are going to build something there. They're going to build a castle there. And by building a castle there, they're building a relationship. And when they're building the castle, they're putting brick on brick, putting the foundation down, building the walls. And then maybe the castle needs to expand, or they're just building this beautiful building, a beautiful relationship. Maybe a wall needs to come down, so they have an argument, try to decide what's going to happen about this wall that's in the way. So they're going to figure out how to take it down, what to put in its place, and they're going to have discussions about how to build the castle. You don't want to have secret rooms either, like maybe keeping something from the other person. Everything has to be open. Everything in the castle has to be known to the other one. And in the end, you can have a beautiful castle and not just a spot of land where there's no relationship.
And something, I don't know if you were going to bring this up later or not, but something that I think it really is important to realize with this analogy is that's one of the big benefits of getting married young, that you can start building that castle from scratch with the other person. The other person hasn't already built a house and have all of that baggage, or maybe all of those secret rooms that they then have to lay out to you or bring into this relationship, into this marriage. I obviously don't have the experience of getting married later in life. We got married young.
We're old souls.
But we've kind of built all of our dreams together. There are obviously dreams that we have that are independent of each other, but the majority of them, we both share in these dreams. We both want to build the castle in the same way, even though there's a little bit of argument, should this wall be here or should it be 3 feet over? We still want to build the same wall.
Right, and then also, you don't want all that baggage from other relationships, because that will affect how your relationship is now.
Oh, for sure.
Even past relationships, you know that even though you don't want to realize it, you still have a part of yourself with the other person that you left behind. And that's why you don't really want to get into so many relationships. You want to try to find that one person and stick with one person.
Yes.
Before we go a little further, I do want to tell whoever's listening to this, Sasha and I have been married for 6 years. In December, we're working on our 7th. We just had our first child 2 months ago. Today, actually. 2 months ago today.
Dang.
We were living in the United States, in Arizona. We decided together to basically sell everything we have. I had a career job as a firefighter. I left it, cashed out my retirement, and we moved to Honduras to start essentially a farming business. And we're in the process of building that right now. Just to kind of give you guys a background as to what our relationship, you can imagine the struggles and the joys that we've had so far. Just so you don't think we're a bunch of rednecks sitting next to a coffee roaster and only been married for, a couple of years.
Well, 6 years is only a couple of years, really, when you put it into perspective.
Now you guys have had to tear down so many walls, firefighting walls and all of that.
Yeah, we moved to lakes.
Oh, yeah, you guys did move the lakes, too. You guys moved the whole building.
Yeah. Sorry. I just felt like probably should mention some of this so people know that.
Put it into perspective.
We've been sparring for 6 years. Okay.
All right, what is the next question? I don't remember. Oh, what are some things that you should keep in mind when dating? Finding that person.
Personally, I have 3 answers to this question that I think are the most important. And the first one is don't have sex. And there's a couple of reasons to this. One is because sex is meant to build emotional ties between 2 married people. And you don't want to be building these ties before you have completely realize that this is the person you want to spend your life with. You should realize that before you have sex, because there's always the possibility of pregnancy and also, like you were saying, baggage. And that can tie you to a person before you know if you want to be tied to that person. So I don't know if you guys had discussion on that one before. You want me to share the other two opinions I have on this?
My
I
mind
agree with
blanked
that.
out.
I would agree with that.
And the reason I bring this up first is because when you start a dating relationship, a relationship in which you are consciously trying to figure out if this is the person you're going to marry, there's a lot of emotions going on, and that is on the forefront of people's minds in this kind of relationship. So I think it's very important from the start for both of you guys to go into this relationship with the decision, we will save ourselves for marriage. Because if we don't end up marrying each other, then we have built all that baggage for each other.
And
that
it's
can cause
important
problems.
to make that plain in the relationship at the beginning, but also make a plan for it in the beginning, because I mean, there's things you can avoid, and obviously
Don't
you
be
could
alone
there.
together.
Don't be alone together would be a big one, and because honestly, you know, sex is an important role in a marriage, but you have to remember too, you are eventually going to be old with this person. You really think that sex is going to get you through every single struggle in a relationship? And I will say, no, it won't. So you need to know who it is you are dating without being just attracted to that,
Yes, get to know
that
them
body kind of a
without
a
the
mindset.
emotional attachment.
Yes.
The second one, I think this is really important because I've seen this a lot and even probably experienced it to some extent myself, is you cannot change anyone. There's this idea that people enter into a relationship with this mindset of a sacrificial savior. I'm going to date this person because I want to save them from themselves. We're playing God. We can't save anyone. God's the only one that can save someone. And also, we are devaluing who they are as a person because we are telling them, I don't believe that you're capable of figuring this out on your own. You need me in order to figure this out. So I think it's very important to not think that you can change someone and enter a relationship thinking that.
Right, you don't want to have the savior mentality when you want to go into a dating.
And also the whole sacrificial part of it. You think it's going to be a healthy marriage if you feel the whole time that you've sacrificed everything. What if they don't change? And you've given up everything you are in an effort that you can't ever accomplish this. So you'll hold that against them forever when it was your decision.
Right, you more of want to build off what they have and not try to change
Exactly.
them in that way.
Try to
You
avoid
gotta
the
change in
regret.
their own way. They gotta. You can show them the right way, but you're never gonna make them change.
Yeah, get to know them and understand who they are and then decide if this is the person that you want to marry or not.
Right.
Or if they snore or do something really weird that you're just like, I
Well,
can't
you
stand
wouldn't
it.
know that, hopefully. Because
Yeah, probably not. Well, unless they have like a
Unless
sleep,
they nap
sleep
all the
app.
time.
They have a sleep app, and they're like, hey, look at that. That's bad sleep scores.
An Oura ring. So you want to be friends before anything.
Oh, most definitely.
We
Always
were
build-
friends before we started dating.
Yes. I didn't even like him when we first met each other,
That's
honestly.
true. I don't even remember the first
Those
time I met
Hawaiian
her.
shirts really ruined it.
Oh, it wasn't even that. I stole her hat when we were going to youth camp on a bus, and I have no memory of this beaver, in the manner of speaking, from a quote of a movie.
Weasel.
I have no memory of this weasel. And she tells me this, like, when we were dating, like, you stole my hat on the bus, and I was like, my goodness, you hold some...
You hold grudges a long
You
time.
have a memory of an elephant. I had no clue. This was years later.
My third thought on this is don't idealize the person. I think as humans we have a habit of building ideals. This is my ideal man. I actually even remember one time a girls' tea party that I went to when I was, I don't know, in my late teens probably. And one of the activities that the host had us do was write on a piece of paper, our ideal man, and then seal it up and put it in a bottle. And then the idea was when you get married, you see if this person meets your ideals.
Where is that now?
I have no idea. I don't keep
Okay.
keepsakes. No, but I think there's actually a lot of problem in this because not that you shouldn't really think about who you want to marry. I think that's very important, which we'll get into later on, I think. But when we are forming ideals of people, we then project those ideals onto the person we're dating or the person we're interested in, and we don't actually get to know who they are. We think of them as who we want them to be, and you might think that this is something that you actually decide to do, but it isn't. You immediately or automatically, without thinking about it, project these ideals without realizing you're doing it. And if you happen to marry this person, you may then wake up and realize, I don't know this person, or maybe I don't even like this person, because the whole time they were who I thought they were, not who they actually were. I never actually got to know them.
Right, so idealizing someone kind of blinds you to who they really are then.
Yes.
Have you seen some of those filters on like Instagram, TikTok, and stuff
Yeah.
like that? I mean, you can completely distort an individual by doing that. I feel like that's a fairly good example. Sometimes I watch a video on supermodels. This looks like just a normal lady. They take a picture and they go through everything they can do to adjust them. And that is something that you can literally just see someone looking at someone they're dating, and you're like, oh, you don't see any of this side of this person. You just see this.
Right, it's kind of like social media where you romanticize everything in your life, because you're not going to show pictures to everyone else of your downtime. You're going to show pictures of the most exciting time of your life, which is almost never, but you still romanticize your life and everyone else romanticizes their life. So it's kind of in that idealizing as well.
And it goes back to love. You don't love a person that you aren't willing to get to know. Part of love, in my opinion, is the fact that you fully understand who they are, or fully understand their potential for weakness and failure, and still decide you're going to get to know them and get to love them. But when you idealize a person, you aren't recognizing that they have all these failures and weaknesses. So when they pop up later, maybe in a marriage, then it's like, who was this person? Were they pretending? But a lot of times it's not that they were pretending. It's that we were idealizing, or we were forming an opinion of who we thought they were.
Right.
And obviously Christ gives a great example of that. Like, pick in there where he idealized his bride, in a manner of speaking, for the people that he died for and all that. They were the ones that killed him.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of have to look at it from a standpoint of, he was willing to sacrifice a lot, but he saw the potential that was in there, that needed to happen.
Right.
By going through his sacrifices. He was already committed to the relationship, by the way, just so people know.
He was committed before they killed him?
He was. Yeah.
The next question was, what? Okay, at what point in a relationship do you start talking about serious things?
I'm pretty sure our second date, my wife told me, I'm throwing this out here. I was driving home from a baseball game, and she said, I don't want to have kids. I want to adopt all of my children. And I was like, well, okay. I could live with that. Are you sure? Yes. How many do you want? I don't think she said all of them, but it was pretty close to all of them. She wanted to adopt a lot of kids. Now, obviously, she's changed just a bit. I think she still does want to adopt, but we started talking about very serious things right off the bat. My first memory of my wife is her challenging me on scriptural doctrine.
Oof.
And my jaw dropped. I was in love. And, yeah, I mean, I was like, what? Woman has a voice and she can literally just throw down stuff that I have been taught my whole life.
It's like in Mulan where the other guys want the song where the other guys wanted a wife that cleans the house and stuff, and then she comes up with a woman that has her own opinion.
Oh yeah. But I mean, we're unique in that sense. I think every relationship may be just a bit different in how they go about the communication. It all depends on the two individuals in this relationship. How's their flow? It can be way different.
I think it has a lot to do with people's personality. For example, when you, in perspective of the 7 love styles test, or
this is the test.
We both score very high on. Well, it's basically the 5 love styles, but they've done a lot of research, and it's not completely accurate, so they've come up with 7 love styles, which in my opinion is much more accurate.
The 7 love languages, not styles.
Well, they call it styles, but yes, it's the same idea. And they take those 5 and add 2 more to it. The 2 that they add is intellectual and another one. But we both score very high on the intellectual. We both, I think, very much need the intellectual stimulation.
So discussing things?
Discussing things. Whenever, I think, the times that I can think of that after these activities, I very much like this person is time when we've had long walks or gone on long drives and had a lot of time to just talk to each other. I think that really, for us personally, builds that bond and strengthens our bond.
Where it's very attractive when someone has their own opinions and actually has their own opinions and not...
But I don't know that this is the case in everyone. This is just
Right.
our particular experience. So there probably are a lot of people who don't start talking about serious stuff from the start. I don't know.
I don't either.
Our specific experience is that, yes, from the way before we were even dating, he was interested in me at the time. I honestly didn't really even like him at all. He wore hideous Hawaiian shirts.
They were great. Airflow.
I didn't really like him at all. He very much wanted to be teasing, and that made me feel uncomfortable because a stranger wants to make jokes to me.
She challenged me on
Weirdo.
everything.
No, but he had heard a conversation that I had, I don't even remember who it was with, that I wanted to read a new book that came out, The Harbinger, the first book. And he actually went out and bought both of us a copy of this book and suggested that we start reading it together. And that's really when we first started texting back and forth, and when we really built a friendship with each other. Later on, I realized I kind of like this guy. But even before we were dating, that's really what cemented and really built our relationship.
Or getting to know each other.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So you should start talking about serious things on the second date, not the first.
Like I said, it was before we even started dating.
Yeah.
No, now you guys gotta tell people about your guys' first movie. What movie you guys watched?
No.
We weren't actually dating
No,
then.
we weren't.
This
It was
is-
really weird.
Well, this was in that same.
What movie did you guys watch?
It was
What was
like,
it called? Like
was a
Cold Hearts
Cold
or
Hearts, yeah. It was basically a romantic relationship between a live woman and a dead zombie.
Yes, it was a
And
zombie
she
movie.
brought, because he loved her so much, and the reason he liked her is because the guy he ate the brains of this other guy, and he had the memories of her in the brains that he
Let me
ate.
point out, I didn't actually pick this movie. Someone else did.
So
And the whole time I was wondering, oh my gosh, what a weirdo. Who would
Hey,
pick this movie?
but in the end, he turned back to a human because his heart came back. Forget the fact he ate brains. But he did come back to life, and that's how they solved the zombie apocalypse. End of story. Print.
That's a perfect movie.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that it was Daily Wire that put it out.
Right.
Yeah, probably Daily Wire. They have
Probably.
really
That sounds
weird
like their
movies.
genre.
No, it was a
Yeah.
horrible movie. Like, I don't even remember most of the movie because the whole time I remember thinking, this sucks. Can I just go home now?
He's definitely not as shallow as you first thought.
Right.
Okay, what is the correct process for starting off to start dating someone?
Yes.
Yes. Finding that person. Fine. I missed it. I only read the first line.
First off, the whole fairy tale idea of the one person and there's only one perfect match, one piece to this puzzle, I think is very flawed. There isn't one person that fills that void in your life, or one person that's that perfect puzzle piece. The one is the decision that you both make to continually choose each other year after year. It's a choice that I am going to love this person, I am going to respect and honor this person. Sometimes every day you have to make this choice because marriage is hard and a lot of times you don't like each other. So I think before you start dating and before you choose that person, you have to realize there isn't that one person. There are things that I think you should look for in a person. And for some examples, I think your ethics should align. I think that's probably, in my opinion, the most important. You should share dreams with each other. You should maybe share hobbies and like similar activities. probably your ideas about family and children should at least be similar, or you should at least discuss that before you choose to marry this person. Another really important one is when you get married, you very likely will start a family and have children, and you should ask yourself, do I want this person to help me raise our children? Is this a person that would be a good father or a good mother? Because when you decide to have children, you're taking on a lot of responsibility. And those are things, in my opinion, you should think about before you decide or ask this person to marry you. Or probably, in my opinion, the beginning of a dating relationship, you should start crossing these things out. Are these things that match up or things that don't?
And again, not all of those have to align in the sense of like hobbies and stuff like that. Because if you guys are aligned for the most part, especially with, I mean, for us, religious standpoints are very important. So we were aligned very closely on some of the things that we deemed as being big. Financial things, living, and religion. How we're raising our kids and those things. That is something that we are always aligned on. But you have to also realize, I mean, not everyone's going to be maybe quite at that crazy level of knowing everything about themselves and what they want to do. So
especially if you get married young.
Yeah, you do have to give people some grace when it comes to looking. Like, you're just like, okay, you check 9 out of 10. Sorry, thumbs down. You might be doing that for the rest of your life and just live single. I mean, you're never going to find someone who hits every single thing on that list. It comes back to what Sasha said about me earlier. I'm an imperfect man. I have all these issues, but I have potential there in the back. I'm not trying to fluff myself. I'm a diamond in the rough, maybe. That's what she saw me as. Maybe she saw me as vanilla in the rough. I don't know. But I'm a diamond in the rough. There's still work to be done. But in the end, if things go right and there's time and love in it, you might have a product that will work.
Well, we got married young enough that I think we didn't probably have very many personal dreams or goals.
No, speak for yourself.
We built a lot of those together. So maybe all of these don't exactly apply because maybe you still don't know what you want to get out of life, and maybe the other person doesn't either. But if you do know, if you know for sure this is what God wants of me, or this is the way I want my life the direction I want my life to take, then probably you should make sure that the other person at least has some of the same thoughts.
Right, and if there was only one person out there for you, you guys would have never got married. I'm sorry. Like, one lives in Honduras, one lives in Arizona. What's the chance?
Yes.
There's not that
she
one
lived 2 doors
person
down from me, by the way, in the States when she moved up there.
Yeah, in the huge city of Phoenix.
It's huge.
Phoenix is huge.
I think probably if you are asking God, then He will guide you to a person who would at least grow to be more in line with who you are, more in line with who He wants from both of you. So probably that's very important, is asking God if there's a person who's better for you.
I was actually just watching a video that Jordan Peterson did. It was a short one, but he was talking about like friendships, and he was talking about how easy it was for people who go into like college and high school to be fast friends. They can get together and they have similar topics to talk about. Talked about as you get older, it's harder and harder and harder to find friends because you guys' path of life changes so much. So if you think about it, as you age more and more and more, it's going to be harder and harder for, like, say, you to find someone to marry at age 40, 45. Like, those people, like Sasha said, has already started building their own castles, in a manner of speaking. They've established their likes, dislikes, and those other things. Whereas you have established yours. It's going to be way harder, and you maybe other challenges associated with doing that later in life versus earlier. Now, some people, it doesn't matter. You can wait and get married whenever you want. It's up to you. But it was just a thought I had when I was watching that video that I thought applied.
What age do you guys actually think is the best age to get married?
Early 20s? Probably. A lot of people after that start going to college and start building their own dreams and their own houses and a lot more of, I guess, their own ideas about what they want their life to look like. It probably makes it more difficult to find someone whose opinions and ideals align with yours.
And it's so hard if you think about it, like, I want to get married when I don't have potential struggling financial times. Well, that could be a long time. And honestly, your relationship gets stronger through those. It's hard, but if it wasn't easy, would it be worth it?
Oh yeah, when we first got married, we were honestly barely making it by. We were on a very strict budget, and I think that was one of the things that helped build our relationship and make us trust and depend on each other. So it's always not that you can't get married later on in life because maybe you don't find someone who you really like. I think it's possible to make it work probably at any point. It's just, I would guess, more difficult.
Right.
A quote from, I think this was from actually Jordan Peterson's wife, Tammy Peterson. One of the videos I watched when she was talking about their relationship was, she said, marry the person whose life you never want to lose intimate sight of. And in order to do that, in order to decide that you never want to lose intimate sight of this person's life, you have to know them pretty well. And I think that was a cool quote because this is a person who you see so much potential in that you want to be part of that potential and that you want to share it with.
A lot of guys actually think that they gotta have a house before they actually get married, which is funny. I think it's more of a younger age guys, or I don't know if it, like, personally, I've thought about that and gone through it all, and I prefer to get married and then build a house just because then we can both build together. But a lot of guys actually think and have their own thoughts that they have to have a house before they actually get married.
That's kind of an interesting thought, because if you think about it through time, back in, say, like the biblical times, you had to present a dowry to the dad, and part of that is I am proving mano a mano kind of thing. I'm proving that I can provide for your daughter. And this is my proof. I have been able to at least get enough money or provide enough that I can give this in exchange for her, kind of a thing. Obviously, she has a play in this, but I think the thought behind that is you're proving, as Jordan Peterson says too, women marry equal or up in traditionally throughout relationships, whereas men don't necessarily. So you have to prove that you are capable of providing an income, because she does at some level think about that. And if you're able to buy a house and that other stuff, it proves that you have an income at least to be able to provide a home.
I actually think that this idea is part of what has maybe destroyed what seems to be the proper layout of a home and family. Maybe you don't need to have a house yet, but I think you should be able to build one. Because I think biblically, it is the man's responsibility to build the house and the woman's responsibility to keep the house, or to build the home, I think is what the quote is. Because once you start having children, I personally think that the woman should be there to raise her children. If at all possible, you should not be sending your children off to daycare. And in my personal opinion, you shouldn't be sending your kids off to school. I think it is the mother's responsibility to nurture and teach her child. The father's as well, of course, but I think that's the mother's responsibility, the woman's responsibility in the house. Not just with her children, but I also think it's her responsibility to build a comfortable home for her husband, somewhere where he wants to come to after work, maybe. And I think the whole modern feminist movement has destroyed this a lot. Not that I don't think women can have careers if they want to, that's fully up to them. But once you get married and decide to have children, you should never put your career above your marriage and your children. Because you are taking on responsibilities that are more important and that you will be more responsible before God to. Your responsibility to your husband and your children is more important than that. And I think men were made to be the strength and the providers.
Right.
So maybe you don't need to have a house yet, but you should be able to build one. You should know how to work and to make an income. I think that's very important before you decide to marry someone.
I think that's an interesting thing that you put there. Scripturally, yes, I believe that the mother should be there. But daycare now, you're having so many young families that are like, even with dual income, we can't afford to send our child to a daycare. I mean, it's getting more expensive than a mortgage to send them into a daycare. And they're seeing the benefit of saying, all right, I'm quitting my job. The mother, sometimes the father, but the mother will quit her job and literally stay at home with the kids. It is cheaper to do it that way now. It's getting that way. I have friends who have done it. And
well, in some states, I'm sure.
It's definitely something to think about, because not only is it aligning with scripturally, but when your kids grow up, you want them to be a part of your life. And you want them to be, in a sense, of friends, being able to communicate back and forth with your kids. How much time do you think they just spend at daycare? Probably more intimate time with the people watching them at daycare, for most of them, than they are with their parents at home. Because when they go home, they eat dinner, they go to bed, they wake up, they go to school, they go to daycare. Rinse, wash, repeat. So the waking hours, they're not even spending with their parents. So what makes you think they're going to stick around whenever you're older, and now you're retired, you're comfortable in these other things, and they're off living their life, and they don't really think much about you anymore.
You won't even know those children because you don't know them.
Yeah, they don't know you either. And that's a really sad state that you're going to find yourself in.
Which is a big problem.
It is. That's why we have to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's at the end of your notes.
Any questions from the guests?
We have a live audience.
No, I think that
covers it all. Relationships
at
should
least
start
part of
off.
it.
Relationships should start off as a friendship and grow from that.
And I can't believe we actually haven't said it, but fasting and prayer.
Yeah.
I mean, it is something that is important. You should be praying. My granddad always said, and I don't necessarily agree with it completely, but he prayed that the Lord would send him someone to be a companion for him when he was young. My dad edited that and said, son, don't do it from when you're like 8 because you're not ready to get married at 8. But when you're in a when you're at dating age and you feel like you're ready, then you start praying and fasting that the Lord will guide you to the person who will benefit you and you them for the rest of your life. Because that is that is something, that is a direction that will take you to where you need to go if you marry the right person. And sometimes you can go through desert times in a relationship with a smile on your face. But it all matters with how you approached it at the beginning. It's a foundation thing. If your foundation sucks, then your end product may not be that great. But if you took the time and effort to really pray and fast in humility, then the Lord will guide you to that individual who is best for you.
Right, and you don't actually want to get into a relationship with the idea of having fun in the relationship, or at least having what the dating thing is today, because it's very messed up in the way it is.
Yes, it's very flawed. I think if you are in a dating relationship, it should be for the specific reason of trying to figure out, is this the person that I should marry? And I don't think you should ever enter into that relationship unless you've been friends already. I think there's steps to it. You become friends, and then if you decide maybe you really like each other, I think there should be a physical attraction. I think that's necessary to have a successful marriage. And if you find yourself in that situation, maybe then date them and maybe figure out, is this the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with, that I want to raise children with, that I want to build a life and a home with.
Right, and even the dating relationship nowadays has kind of upped the divorce rate, because in a dating relationship you can just leave whenever you want and not be committed all the way. And
I know people who have gotten married after only knowing each other for a short period of time because 100% off of physical attraction. I thought they were hot, they thought I was cute, whatever. And then got divorced a couple years later, probably with 1 or 2 kids. I know a specific couple who has 2 kids. They didn't know each other beforehand. They got married only because they had that chemical attraction to each other. And a couple years later, they were divorced.
After the honeymoon high,
they realized they had nothing in common, and they didn't even like each other.
Yeah.
It was all that attraction.
On the flip side of that, we just had a man who meant a lot to me that just recently passed away, and him and his wife only knew each other for 2 weeks before they...
Holy smokes.
And that was Don and Betty. I believe it was actually 2 weeks, and then they got married.
But it wasn't very long.
And they were married for I don't know, close 60 some odd years, maybe 70. I mean...
I don't know how long they were married.
There's mindset that's also involved in it.
Well,
not just what you just said.
They also went into it with the decision of,
commitment.
We are going to stay together and build a life together
Absolutely.
forever. There's no option of divorce. That's not a back door.
Yeah.
And you want to go into marriage knowing there's no way out of this. I am choosing this person forever, for my whole life, for their whole life.
They burned the ships at the harbor and said there's only one way forward, no way back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's very important too.
And go keep seeking truth.